Welcome back to the channel. For this video, we will be reviewing Artemis Fowl Book 3, The Eternity Code. If you guys have been enjoying these videos, please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss a video. As always, format for the book review, summary of the story, pros, cons, and then my final thought and ranking. So, with all that out of the way, let's hit the intro. Eternity Code takes place a couple months after Arctic incident. Artemis's father has finally come out of his coma, and Artemis now has to deal with the reality of having both of his parents back, and he's grappling with himself. Do I want to go straight, or do I continue with the family business and keep doing what I've been doing? Artemis sets up one last crazy plan where he is going to meet up with an American businessman named John Spiro and sell him what Artemis is calling the C-Cube, which is this crazy mini computer that Artemis was able to put together from stolen LEP parts that had been left over from the siege from the first book. But Artemis gets way in over his head, and Spiro outsmarts Artemis, and his entire world is just shattered. And Artemis now must link up with the LEP. He and the LEP need to figure out how to get the cube back. But in getting the LEP's cooperation, Artemis, Buttler, and Juliet have to get their minds completely erased of all their fairy memories. So it's one last mission to get the C-Cube back in order to protect the fairy world. So first thing I'm going to talk about is just the fact that this book feels so much different than the previous two books. So this very much feels a lot different than the first two, mainly because it's set up more like a heist book. This is Artemis Fowl's Mission Impossible. It very much gives off that feel. The fact that Artemis has to sneak into this building, the fact that everyone has to do specific things and stuff goes wrong. It is very Mission Impossible, and I really do like that. Because the first one was more of a character piece than anything else. Second book was more of a thriller sort of thing, and then this one is very much a heist book, and I absolutely like how Colfer was able to make it feel super fun while putting a new spin on the heist genre. So I really do enjoy the sort of feel and the change of pace and everything from the first two books to this book. So second thing I'm going to talk about is the stakes of this book. So this book, out of the first three, has the biggest stakes because not only is the fairy world about to get exposed because Artemis was super careless, like that's happening. If he succeeds, Artemis is going to lose all of his memories of the past 2 years, which that is a very big thing that Artemis needs to grapple with. And Butler's not in this book. I'm not going to spoil anything in case anyone hasn't read the book, but Butler gets injured in this book very badly, and he is not at Artemis's side to help him through all that. And I feel like Colfer really does an awesome job bringing the stakes up. The first book didn't have a whole lot of stakes, not really. Second book had pretty good stakes with Artemis's father and the whole destruction of the LEP thing. But this book I feel like definitely has the best stakes with Artemis's exposing of the fairy world about to happen, Artemis going to lose his memory if he succeeds, and the fact that he doesn't have Butler at his side. That is, I think, the biggest stakes that we've had in this entire series for the first three books, and I think Colfer does an incredible job building the stakes and just building the tension so well. Like, of the first three, I feel like this is definitely the best. The other two are good, but I feel like this one has the best stakes, the best drama, and just the best overall story of the first three books. Again, like I said, the other two are good, but this one I feel like Colfer is at his A game so far in this entire series. Third and final thing I'm going to talk about for this prose section is the dynamic between Artemis and Spiro in this book. So, as far as Spiro goes, I really enjoyed Spiro as a villain because they literally point this out. He is what Artemis could become if he had no morals. If he hadn't met Holly and hadn't become a better person because of it, Spiro is probably what Artemis would become, and I really like that. They point that out in the book, and Coulter's writing very much makes it evident that's where Artemis would have been heading had he not met Holly and not changed. And I really like how Coulter put up a mirror to Artemis, because Artemis is appalled at that. Artemis finally realizes, like, I might have been like John Spiro before, but after meeting Holly, I am not that person anymore. And I really think Coulter did an excellent job at that. Because what makes John Spiro super interesting, again, like I said, is you can definitely see the parallels to Artemis, but also this is I think the first villain that's really tested Artemis one-on-one. John Spiro is just as smart. I mean, Artemis might be a bit smarter, but John Spiro is ruthless and is willing to do whatever he needs to win. And Artemis was like that, and it kind of still is, but to a slightly lesser degree. But there are a lot of good parallels between John Spiro and Artemis, which I feel like makes a good antagonist. For me in general, if you could hold up the mirror to the protagonist and say, this is what you're going to become if you don't change, that's a really good thing. It's better if it's not surface level, but if you can tie the protagonist and the antagonist together, I feel like that makes for a much more compelling story than just some straight up villain. John Spiro does come off a bit cartoony, and I'll talk about that in a second, but I do feel like Coulter did a very good job at holding up the mirror to Artemis and being like, dude, you have to change because you are on this same path. Honestly, I feel like Spiro is the best of the villains that we've had so far in the first 3 Artemis Fowl books. All of that is because Coulter did such a good job at holding up the mirror to Artemis and showing what he could become if he did not change. So, all in all, I feel like Spiro is definitely a very good villain that tests Artemis and pushes him to his best in this book. Starting off the con section, I'm going to talk about John Spiro for a second and just how cartoony he comes off. I know I just praised Coulter's writing for John Spiro, but there are some things about John Spiro's character where I'm like, okay, I get what Coulter was going for, but Spiro does come off a bit cartoony. He does just come off as this crazy mob boss type character, and I kind of get that. This just might be me nitpicking the book, because John Spiro, again, just comes off very cartoony. But when I think of it in retrospect, I understand that Coulter needed that type of villain for this type of series, because Artemis Fowl is good. It's not really in-depth, so their villains aren't that complex, and that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing that they're not so complex that the kids can't understand what their villains are saying, but it's a bad thing in that sometimes the villains in this book come off very cartoony, but again, that's just probably me. All in all, I feel like Spiro does come off cartoony at times, but I understand why he has to come off cartoony. It's a double-edged sword for Spiro being as cartoonish as he comes off in the book. Alright guys, so final thoughts on the book here. I really thoroughly enjoyed Eternity Code. I feel like Coulter does his best in this book to push Artemis because he is going to lose his fairy memories if he succeeds. He doesn't have Buttler, and 3, he's up against a villain who is just as intelligent and smart as he is. So this, I think, is where Artemis gets pushed the most, because he's up against odds that he hasn't faced yet. And I feel like Coulter does a great job setting up all the stakes, setting up everything. As always, all the characters are super memorable. Holly, Artemis, Mulch, and everyone else are super memorable as always. So I really do enjoy Eternity Code sort of as the cap off to this first sort of pseudo Artemis Fowl trilogy. And I thoroughly do enjoy Eternity Code and highly recommend it if you've been enjoying the Artemis Fowl series. I'm going to give Eternity Code an 8.5 out of 10. If you've been enjoying this content, please do not forget, like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you do not miss a video. Down in the comments, if you guys have books you want me to do reviews on in the future, please leave them down there in the comments. If you guys want to follow me on social media, my Instagram is Riley Murray Book Reviews, and my Twitter is Riley T. Murray. As always, I will put links to those accounts down in the description. Alright guys, I will see you next video. Have a great weekend, and don't forget, keep on reading.